In Buddhism, there's a discussion that there are two truths in the world. Two truths in the world that we are bound by. One truth is called the conventional truth. Or we can rather look at the two layers of truth. Two layers of a truth that we are bound by. One truth is called the conventional truth. The other truth is called the ultimate or a deeper truth. But let's understand the conventional truth first. The conventional truth, an example for conventional truth is that we see the Barry's Lake over here. One part of the Barry's Lake is owned by the monastery to a certain extent, but it belongs to the township of North Dumfries. And the other part, like a small strip, is owned by the township or the city of Cambridge. There's an imaginary line which goes through the lake, which the beaver we saw just a while ago, he does not know about it. And the birds don't know about it. But there's an imaginary line that people have gotten together and said, conventionally, we are going to call this part the township of North Dumfries, this part the township, the city of Cambridge. That's a fantastic example for conventional truth. And we are all bound by the conventional truth to a certain extent, to a large extent. Take Canadian dollars or Canada, for example. There's an imaginary line between Canada and Alaska. This side we call it Canada, the other side we call it the United States. But what is it really? Is there truly a line like that except in our heads? So a kid who does not understand this would not give any value to this imaginary line or this imaginary currency that adults give a lot of value to. Canadian dollars. Right? I saw a lot of kids come on Sundays. They do not have a value for Canadian dollars because they are not bound by that truth. So now the good thing is that we can also understand, while we physically as a community, as a society, as a system, we are bound by certain rules, but in here we don't necessarily have to be bound by all those rules. Now what this conventional truth brings is that it brings us a lot of standards. It says this is how a person should live, this is how you should be doing things, and if you don't have a particular thing, we will work hard, we will be stressed out to achieve that, right? So that is part of conventional truth. As long as we are bound by that, we will not be internally very relieved. Again, I'm not saying that we can externally renounce all that. Like, for example, I'm a Buddhist monk of Theravada tradition. Now there are so many traditions of Buddhism, and because I'm a Theravada Buddhist monk, I have to wear my robe this way, not any other way, this way, right? So that's the conventional truth. But in here, if you ask me who's in here, he's not bound by the Theravada tradition, right? So what I'm saying is, again, if you let go of these conventional truths in here, you'll be quite relieved, you'll be quite liberated to a certain extent. But then we have to look at the ultimate truth or the deeper truth. But let's not do it today. We'll just get relieved from the conventional truth, which could usually bother us. There are fears, there are disgusts, there's insecurity that we get in our life. We like the happy part of our mind. Like when it's happy, when we feel euphoric, when we feel ecstatic, we like it. But the part that we don't like usually is that sad, miserable, angry, disgusting, that is the side that we do not want to associate with. But then when we look at it, there's this thing called the Bhaya Sutra, or the understanding of 4 different types of disgusts, fears that you could have, right? And the first one is that everyone is afraid of punishment, right? As a kid, as an adult, you do or do not engage in certain things because you have a aversion to punishment, right? You behave, you file your taxes on the particular date because otherwise you get penalized, monetary, in some way or the other you get penalized. So that first part is called the aversion or the fear towards punishment. But then there's a second part, that's the fear about our afterlife. Now, depending on what religion you believe, every one of us is bound by a afterlife fear. Based on whatever the religion you pick, there are certain good things, there are commandments according to the religion. If you are a Catholic, there's the 10 commandments. If you are a Hindu, there's the Veda which says what to do. If you are Muslim. There's the Quran which says what you should do and what you should refrain from. And according to all these rules, if you break one of these, you will have a bad life in your afterlife. And again, the idea of afterlife exists in most of the religions. 97% of the religions in the world carry some sort of an afterlife, a continuation of what you have from this life. So the fear of afterlife is also defined by what you have learned through your culture, through your society. There's a lot of acquired learning in it. So I'm not discussing about the right or wrong of the ultimateness of this. I'm talking about what you are bound by right now. So the second part is called the fear of afterlife, or Duggati Baya in the Pali language. The first one is called the Danda Baya. Danda means punishment. But then the two other things are the most important things. There's two other things called Paranuada Baya and Attanuada Baya. Everyone is afraid or insecure about what would others think about me. Now, you did not have when you were younger. You did not have that fear or insecurity when you were younger. That's why younger kids seems to be more free. They are not bound by what others would think about me. They are less bound. But as you grow, especially in my Asian culture when I was growing up, the boys and girls are treated in two different manners. I think it's sort of universal wherever you go. Boys have a little more freedom than the girls. Girls are asked to be a little more restricted than boys in certain cultures. So when you grow up, you have limitations that you will be bound by again, and then those limitations are based on how others would judge you on your behavior. And again, you are bound by that insecurity, by that fear, by that notion. But the most important out of all is that your own judgment about yourself. How would you think about your own behavior? That is called the Attanuada Baya, which is one of the deepest fears one could have. My own judgment about myself. Now, why did I say that? If you again look at all these things, the fear of punishment, fear of afterlife, fear of how others would think about you, and the fear of what I would think about myself, how I would judge myself, all those belong to the conventional part of the truth. Now, by that, I'm not denying any God. There are 4,600 religions. I'm not denying any of these religions. But the God or karma or whatever the superpower in each religion, most of us haven't personally met that power or the ultimate consciousness or the God Almighty or whatever. We just have a notion about that based on the data that we have acquired from our culture. Now, I am completely okay with you getting deeply connected with your God, with your ultimate power, with the ultimate nature of the universe. That is fine. But right now, people would have ideas about it, not the actual meeting with the God, right? Now, that bounds you to a certain extent. So what I wanted to discuss, the key point I wanted to discuss is that during the meditation, we do the last part where we are letting go of fear, we are letting go of anger, and then we are letting go of craving. So try to reflect on this point, that we are bound by a certain amount of conventional reality. Conventional reality applies on you as long as you are bound by it, as long as you are accepting that. If you do not accept it, you don't have to necessarily be afraid, fearful, insecure with that fear. Okay, so that's something to think about before we get into our meditation. So conventional reality and ultimate reality. Let's try to find the ultimate reality, the ultimate God, ultimate nature, ultimate universal consciousness, whatever you call it, but not be bound by the conventional part. Again, by this, I'm not asking you to be stripping down or deconstructing your conventional norms and rules and all that. I'm only asking you to see the possibility of letting go it in here, not outwards. So it is not an outward liberation, it's an inward liberation. Okay, with that, let's do our meditation today. Okay, so completely forget everything I just mentioned. Completely forget it. Right? Close your eyes, use your eye masks. let's settle down. If you need a chair, pick a chair or cushions, whatever works for you.